Добрый день.
So, good morning, rather good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now, our panel is about support to industry. Wow, and as a subtopic would be new tools. Why don't we just focus on the existing tools and some new tools and what the needs that industry has with regard to. So we have representatives of the federal government here and branch industries and main industries and regional institutions are represented here. We have financial institutions, associations of businesses, and also individual business people are also present here. Some of them have not even been able to register in advance, but I think that, judging by the interest they're displaying, we are going to have a very interesting panel. So, what can and should be done in order for us to raise more investments, to make our investment climate more appealing? Somebody mentioned the number of like 17%, which is the share of investments in our current capital investments, which I think is a little bit low. So why don't we try and somehow find ways to increase, to raise this share at least up to 20, so that we can invest into our economic growth. So this is all about growth. We have a representative of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and Mr. Yevtukhov is representing that ministry. I would like for him to open the floor and actually share with us the minister's plans. Thank you, Yermolai, ladies and gentlemen. So how much time to allot it? Because I've been, as I was preparing for today's panel, I was cutting it short, and there's somebody from Kazakhstan here as well, and he's looking forward to hearing whether or not we have some unlawful tools. No, everything is absolutely lawful that we have. So how much time do I got? Anyways, it's going to be as short, as brief as I can. Just stop me whenever you feel uncomfortable. Okay, new tools, how to support industries. Let me first focus on the existing tools, though that have been around for some time now, and then I will move on to some new tools. Basically, they're not new, perhaps, but as part of our new legislation, which was adopted recently. This is about actually new federal law on investment policies, and the purpose of that law is, in fact, to rectify the investment lapse in the non-financial sector and to make our investment climate sexier, more appealing to investors, including direct foreign investments as well. So everybody heard about our new foundation for development of industries, and this tool has been around for 2 years now. And looks like everybody's happy with the way it has been functioning so far. We have a large number of applications filed by entrepreneurs, and this foundation grants loans at low interest rates for 10 to 15 years, 5 to 10 years. As of now, this tool has been used by 130 enterprises, 130 loans have been granted in the amount of 36.6 billion rubles, and all in all, about 70 billion rubles are part of this foundation. So we're receiving more applications. And somebody mentioned that the Parliament of the Russian Federation they need to perhaps increase the amounts of funds granted to this foundation, but we'll see. This is just we'll see whether or not this tool is going to be effective or not. And by the way, these funds that are given out to entrepreneurs, they're in fact they're designed to come back. and to bring a return on these investments. And basically, we try to target industries that are engaged in upgrade and modernization. What happens is the foundation grants a loan, like for entrepreneurs to up to like for their 50% of the advance payments at 5.2% interest rate per year and per annum, and I think that this tool is going to be a very promising tool. The volume of investments in industry has come to over 7 billion rubles. As a matter of fact, twice as much as the total amount of loans granted. And the idea is to create at least 9,000 jobs. And the foundation is very well managed and administered. There's a management board and board of guardianship board, and the special brochure has been released to in English for international investors, for them to be able to apply for what we refer to as a special investment contracts, so-called SICs. All right, but I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. The current government resolutions that are in effect right now with regard to interagency and intersectoral cooperation has to do with a special contest that we run like as part of a bidding process, and this is resolution number 03 that you're familiar with. 66 projects have been awarded now contracts and the total amount of over 1 billion rubles, and next pretty much soon the 5th bidding process will be launched as part of this support initiative on the part of the government to our industries. Another tool that everybody is using very actively, if they meet our requirements, submit all the followed necessary documents, and can prove that these funds are going to be used for targeted purposes, so which is regulated by regulation number 12/13 on measures of support with regard to subsidies that are used for R&D. So this is about subsidies, like I said, and 36 projects are going to be subsidized in such a way in the amount of over 3.6 billion rubles. In 2014, this tool already operated efficiently. Same goes for 2015. But as you know, for you to be able to use these funds, you need to make sure that your R&D results are put into practice. Otherwise, you will have to return these funds to the coffers. So another thing that should be mentioned here as part of our support strategy, we're talking about this 3-pillar 3-in-1, which is a very important tool for territorial development as part of our industrial infrastructure, is the development of industrial parks, technical parks, and industrial clusters. Now, as of 1st of September this year, industrial parks exist in over 47 regions of the Russian Federation. 93 current platforms already operating, and all in all, in 2015, 50 billion ruble worth of products were produced, with over 400 million rubles of tax revenues collected from such companies. Over 200 foreign companies, residents, have become residents of our industrial parks all over Russia in those 47 regions that I mentioned. With regard to technical parks, the number is smaller, because this is about developing high-tech sectors of industry. 19 technical parks already in operation. All in all, they house over 1,000 companies. Now, as you know, so we subsidize management companies, those that manage industrial parks and technical parks. Earlier this year, a special tool was launched to support enterprises that actually are part of this infrastructure. Another tool that was launched earlier this year was to subsidize participants of industrial clusters. As of today, All in all, we have like three projects for three industrial clusters. As a matter of fact, we had four. I'm sorry. So there was a four because there's a one in Arkhangelsk Oblast, another. So the fourth cluster just emerged. Anyway, the requirements were very tough placed on applicants. Over 10 participants were required to be part of the bidding process, and their level of cooperation, including financial institutions, the level of cooperation was required to be at least 50%, which is pretty tough for initial stages. Therefore, we reviewed the 50% limit and lowered it down to 20. And therefore, we are witnessing a growing interest on the part of many enterprises to join in, and another cluster is going to be created in Vologda. The total amount of funds that is planned for next year comes to over nearly 5 billion rubles. Now, finally, let me move on now to our main tool of support, which was created a special, like we said, a special investment contract approach, which is a unique platform that is beneficial for both investors and the government, and for the regions. They commit to upgrading or using this fund in order to upgrade their industries in response, and they they fall under this grandfathering provision. In other words, so their tax status is not changed for some time. In other words, the grandfathering to the regional situation, whereby they had to pay less taxes or use some tax exemptions and so forth. Right. So this seems to be really very appealing, and there's, if an investor comes and enters into an SEIC, is entitled to a zero-rate profit tax. Such amendments were made into our tax code earlier this year in May, and will become effective as of early 2017. Now, in case of government public procurement, for example, there are some requirements. Some restrictions apply. Investments have to exceed 10 billion rubles, and this tax exemption is also constrained by 30% of profit. Now, such SIC contracts, as a matter of fact, are recognized as products made in Russia, provided the necessary required level of localization has been achieved from the very beginning of the time where these contracts become effective. So planning horizon seems to be pretty large and wide, and but maybe we don't have enough time series because this tool was launched not long ago, just less than 1 year ago. And let me give you an example of a machine building plant in Ulyanovsk. Another SIC contract was entered into by a company in Orlov that produces pumps for oil and gas pipelines. And by the way, those contracts were signed, two investment special investments were signed as part of the St. Petersburg Economic Forum with a German company and a Japanese company. So another 4 contracts are now being drafted to be signed. All in all, the total number of applications is about 20. The total amount of investments comes to over 370 billion rubles, and the total amount of jobs that is supposed to be created over 2.5 thousand. As a matter of fact, We understand that such a tool as SIC contracts will enable us to improve the quality and quantity. Well, to increase the quality and basically to improve the quality of our contracts. The idea is to retain investors, those who may have some doubts as to whether or not to continue and go on with their projects that have already been launched. But the idea is not only to retain those existing that are already in the market, but also to bring in new investors. And we understand that SIC contracts is not the only tool. But expectation is pretty high, and I think that this expectation will be met. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Of course, you've mentioned a lot of different tools, including foundations, funds, and different subsidies and special investment contracts, and we would like to discuss all that. Someone has more information about that. And my first question would be to Sergei Filatov from the Oriol region. Sergei, as I understand, you're moving actively in that direction. Could you please share that experience? Maybe there are special conditions which can be spread more broadly, more widely, and maybe we can use more selective approach. Maybe we have to make something in the form of a special investment contract, not general conditions. Thank you so much. As it has been mentioned, we're participating in the process quite actively, and the first Russian company which entered into a special investment contract was the GMS company, our company which manufactures pumps for oil products, petrochemical products. This is a very useful tool for promoting and reinforcing the industrial potential of our region. And the first contracts follow the requirements of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and there should be certain assessments, a certain experience, and I'm sure it will be quite positive. And we see the progress that already exists, and we are building new facilities, purchasing new equipment, and we will soon start to manufacture new products. And as a rule, we see that the products become more competitive in the domestic market, and it has a great export potential. And the ministry requires that we create products for export supplies, because we're becoming competitive in that segment, which is quite makes us quite happy. If we talk about spreading this experience, I would like to emphasize that this deals not only with special investment contracts, but also with a favorable investment climate, favorable investment environment for the customers, for the investors. This doesn't require any support from the government. We have colleagues from Sanofi Aventis Vostok company, which manufactures insulin. It would be quite common if we hadn't had accreditation since February, and supplies to Germany, which gives impetus to high-tech production. And the same approach is used for one other company, which is Keramo Maratsi, the company which works in the region. It holds up to 20% of the Russian market in coverings for floors and walls. And this is not a special investment contract. It will make it possible for us, for the company, to retain about 20% of the market, which is also a considerable share. We shouldn't be talking about a quick fix like special investment contract, but a set of tools which can be applied for different models which arise in a certain region. The Oriol region is a poor region. We don't have oil or gas. We don't have any fossils. We have the literary capital of Russia. We're proud of our people who want to survive in those conditions, who would like to bring some opportunities for their home region. There are small points that I would like to emphasize. All the benefits are offered to our companies. We work in different spheres. There are sometimes big barriers, big thresholds of entry, and we would think about this, and we would lower those barriers for the programs that can be offered to our enterprises where there are no giants, and it is necessary that the projects are a bit more small scale, a bit smaller scale. And you've been mentioned lots of tools, but the main thing is to develop the support for industry. Over the past year or two, what has been the situation with the investment activity of small and medium companies? You have given us examples of a successful growth. Is there any upsurge of caused by the exchange rate of the ruble, or maybe there are certain branches like agriculture which is growing? Just for me to understand, could you please describe what's going on? Or maybe there are some small investments and you have a task of increasing them. In our region, the investment portfolio to the gross regional product is a bit higher than it is across Russia. And we have some investment funds attracted to our area, and it gives us a certain opportunity to develop. And the Oriol region has one specific feature. We are in the black soil region, and agriculture is becoming more and more beneficial. And we have 760,000 people and 24,000 square kilometers. So we manufacture about 3 million cereals, which is not consumed in the region, but is exported beyond our borders, out of Russia. And the sanctions helped the highly marginal businesses to manufacture foodstuffs for cattle and milk and some other foodstuffs. We are growing, we're not falling, and we are retaining social stability, and we're retaining manufacturing volumes. I would ask the business community leaders how these problems of investment in how are they resolved in this context of crisis, in context of international situation, which is quite complicated. I would like to ask Mikhail Hitov from the Class company, how is this machinery is organized, how it works, and how are the measures which have been mentioned by the ministry at the federal level and at the local level, how are they organized? thanks a lot. We are manufacturing we're a German company, as has been said. And there's always a question whether or not we're German or Russian. Now, after we have entered into a special investment contract, there is no doubt we're manufacturing agricultural machinery. It is a very important product for the Russian Federation, which is willing to provide the foodstuffs not only for its own population but also for export. We think that without the Russian Federation, it will not be possible to provide enough food for our world. So Russia must export its cereals, its corn, and we have to step up our agriculture. And we're a company which signed a special investment contract as the first one, but the contract is always signed by two parties. And for the Russian Federation, it was the first special investment contract. And a lot of effort has been put from all sides into that. I would like to thank the Foundation for the Development of Industry for their support over all of this time. And it's only if you have a strong discussion, a deep discussion, only then can you realize and implement all the measures. 4 companies have signed that agreement, and more experience has been accumulated, and not only among investors but also among the federal authorities. In fact, as a company, we've been investing into the Russian Federation over 25 years, and import substitution is not something new for us. And we're opening our second factory in Krasnodar, where we're investing 15 million euros into our metal processing and assembly. Those investments do not include the investments of our suppliers. They increase the level of our products. What's important for us about the special investment contracts is stability, because our industry is such that a lot of changes have taken place over recent years. A lot of support from the state has come. Lots of changes in different spheres. And it did not affect our obligations. It was not always clear for us what Russian products were about. Now we have special provisions of the government. We will abide by them within 3 years that were never completed. And it's important for us to comply with our obligations. And the machines which we manufacture are Russian-made. It's important for us. As for the taxes, they are not so important for us, because as we take part in the state programs, it's more important for us. And every enterprise should show in its own example what's more important. As for the state programs, federal programs, it's quite important. It's not so. We as a company think that we have to get some subsidies, and in the long run, those subsidies do some benefits to the farmers. And this is the most important, the key player in agriculture, and so this supports the farmers who can purchase different facility different appliances at a beneficial price. And we, as an enterprise, benefit from this largely, and when there are no subsidies from the state, then the competition in the market is more traditional, is more natural, and subsidies give some of the manufacturers some certain benefits, and we're happy that we now can compete in the Russian market as well. Not everything is so smooth. We've done a lot of things to get equal access to the market like our competitors. What the central authorities do get is that additional localization and increase in the payroll, in the number of people that we can employ, and in the training, especially in the Krasnodar Krai, where we are working with I'm still experiencing some difficulties with the Russian language. We're working with 3 vocational schools where we are applying certain specialized trainings for them, and we are training the trainers in Germany for 3 months, and then the welders get trained. Then once again we train them in our factory, and we send 4 men to Germany once again, which was quite surprising to us. Our German colleagues said that the Russian colleagues, we won't let our Russian colleagues go, because not everything was clear with work visas. Now we have 98.5% Russian employees in our factory, and we take our pride in that. I've been in Russia for quite a long time, and we all know that joke that Russians can do a lot with their own hands. I'm sorry. Customers oftentimes have doubts, and we wouldn't like your product from the Krasnodar Krai. We wouldn't like to have your product from Germany. But now we have a big sticker on our tractors, made in Krasnodar, made in Russia. And our customers are aware of the fact that the quality is no lower, probably higher than the German quality. This is because our factory is new, and also because we are investing vastly in the development of our human resources, our employees, and the quality is never at a disadvantage. One question: what is the degree of localization that you use for your machines? What's the percent of the cost? Do you export them, the tractors that you manufacture in Russia? Is the Russian market sufficient to keep the economy going? The level of localization, I love that discussion, because I have been talking to the Ministry of Industry and Trade since 2009, and in fact there are certain components which you have to manufacture domestically, and it's difficult to talk about a real percentage. If we talk about our calculations according to the formula of the World Trade Organization, then it's about 60% with additional investments. It depends largely on the exchange rate, but we don't stop here. Whatever we can manufacture in the Russian Federation can be done here domestically, and we'll do it here, incentivized by the state. Export is crucially important for us, and We have manufactured produce that we export to Kazakhstan, to Belarus, to other countries. And we have some export obligations, and all that we're doing without those obligations is the processing of Russian metal and varnishing, and we have 54 items that we supply to the German production lines. This is what we have achieved, and we find it quite cost-effective to sell to Germany, and we know that it's not only about anti-dumping investigations, and then there are protective entry fees for Russian and Chinese steels. The business always finds a way to make a detour around all the limitations of politicians. Thank you so much. And may I just shortly comment on what Mikhail has said? We're talking about how many workplaces have been created, but the main goal is not to create just workplaces, but high-tech workplaces. They are being created, and then another point is education and training and practical training. We have multiple companies in different branches of industry, and we have some experience from our international colleagues. We can use some sayings, some proverbs, and make them sound mildly. And the volume of investments is 750 million rubles. There is no limitation for regional investments, but if we talk about special investment contracts, we are not talking about some individual goods, but we are raising this threshold, this barrier from 350 million to 750 million. But for regional products, we don't have any limitations.
Thank you for your inputs. Now, following on the topic, Mikhail mentioned that he's running a German company, which is almost a Russian company. My question goes to Matthias Sharp, head chair of Moscow office of Chambers of Commerce of Germany. So, Matthias, being a Russian-German Chamber of Commerce B20 Germany representative, you have been following bilateral relations between German and Russian businesses. I understand that in light of the recent sanctions imposed on Russia, this is something that can help but affecting our bilateral relations. So what is your take on the mood dominating in Germany amongst German business communities? I mean, whether or not they're ready to overcome political barriers or barriers imposed by politicians on businesses, right? Whether or not, when we're going through some, tough times here, economically speaking, is there any hope for Russia, perhaps, to be able to get some investments from Germany, regardless of all of these? Well, thank you, Yermolai, says Matthias. Ladies and gentlemen, generally speaking, our moods are pretty positive, right? German enterprises are present here, and Mikhail Ritter mentioned this in his input, and German companies have always been champions and pioneers and champions in terms of localization before even this word became so fashionable. And Yermolai mentioned as well, you mentioned the word wave in your comments. Yes, we're talking about a wave of German investments coming to Russia, and according to the Federal Bundesbank, Germany, as of first quarter of this year, German companies invested up to over 1 billion 1.1 billion euro into Russian economy, as a matter of fact, which is a good positive sign and a good number, right? Now, Ernst & Young has some statistics as well as of last year to 2015, according to Ernst & Young. A record number of investments made to Russia came from Germany. This is like 201 projects, which including 36 were German projects. So Germany again was rated as number one amongst investing economies investing in Russia as of last year. So if you look at the total number of trade, turnover amongst our between our countries, 18 billion euro was the record in 2011, which dropped down to 50 billion as of 2015. But still, you have to be aware of the fact that this is all about playing with numbers. Numbers are sometimes not precise, and you have to take into account major drop in prices for commodities like oil and gas worldwide. Therefore, you need to adjust those numbers respectively. Now, I would like to exclusively share with you, ladies and gentlemen, what we do at our Chamber of Commerce. On a yearly basis, twice a year, we run questionnaire surveys trying to keep track on investment climate, and this survey is distributed amongst 800 members of our Chamber of Commerce, which is then published at the end of the next month. So back to your question on localization, 23% of all respondents will have completed localization by 2017. Either this is about making the existing manufacturing process deeper in Russia, or perhaps new production lines will be put into operation, thus increasing the level of localization in Russia by German companies. We're talking about the following dynamics, like over 5 companies that seek localization, either deeper or by the use of new assets. So I just came back from Samara and Ekaterinburg visiting those cities, and I attended the opening ceremonies in Ekaterinburg, Rheinhausen machine building factory. Was just commissioned, and they produce transformers and switchboards. About 50% of all. So about 50% of all electric equipment is produced by that company for their clients, and this is a classical example of a good German enterprise that leads in the world and operates also under new conditions. And these new conditions that are present in Russia are deemed by that company as an opportunity. It doesn't mean that they can relax and rest on their rails. I don't think so. But at the same time, if you look at the SPIX contracts, it was no accident that Claas was a German company. It was a German company, Claas particularly, that pioneered the signature of such contracts. There are some other contracts that are looking at this, and pretty much within the next couple of months or maybe a year, will also join in and will sign their own SPICs with their Russian counterparts. Now, this is something that is very good news, but sometimes there's a long way to go, and our members of our Chamber of Commerce, the reason why they're so reluctant they are coming to Russia, because number one, costs have become lower. What used to cost like 5 million euro costs now like 2.5, right? So makes sense. Number two, Russian exports, or rather, so imports, coming from Europe to Russia are becoming more expensive because of the devalued ruble. Therefore, it makes sense to transport their manufacturing assets to Russia rather than continue producing them in Germany. Number three, and this is true of both federal level and regions, what happens is that this dirty carpet that is spread when, guess what I mean is this, it lasts what happens is that last night at the reception, you know, I remember a lot of colleagues putting down their the cell phone numbers on their and the business visit cards on their telephones, which was not the case back in like 2011. Anyway, so import substitution, localization are big topics here in Russia, and this is also that offers no opportunities. If you look at SPIC contracts, if I may compare, it's like comparing new aircraft. Doesn't matter whether they're produced by Sukhoi or Boeing or Airbus. Doesn't matter because you have to keep improving and upgrading this hardware, and it takes at least a couple of years after new models are released, right? And this is exactly what is happening in terms of our bilateral relations with our Russian counterparts at the Commerce Chamber. And exactly, this is a new wave of new fresh investments coming from Germany to Russia, and I hope that this is going to become stronger because 3 or 4 years from now, today's investors will have been able to return on their money, and they will be able to say, hey, yes, that did make sense, it was good. And then this word will be spread because the inner circle is very narrow, right? But on the other hand, if they realize in 3 years from now that no, that did make sense, that was a mistake on our part, then, of course, that will scare other investors away, and the flow of investments may result in going down. So, and my role will be much more challenging. Okay, which governor did not did not share his number? Maybe from a prosperous region, right? Well, thank you very much indeed. And it really is funny that that there's a lot of opportunities in the market, and German companies are trying to capitalize on these opportunities, and the Russian Federation is trying to also offer a large arsenal of tools to attract investors. But oftentimes we hear some fears, and like prime costs tend to be growing, and this devaluation effect is getting weaker. And by the way, speaking about our market capacity, all in all, if we look at this, it's not about supporting tools, but also about outlooks and prospects for economic growth, competitivity, right, and growing demands. Hence, I'd like to turn to Boris Titov. Mr. Titov has business experience himself now. He is representing our business community and the Kremlin. And so what do you think should be done in your capacity as Presidential Commissioner for the Protection of Entrepreneurs' Rights in order to make our investment climate more appealing? Thank you, Yermolai, for your question. Yes, indeed, I have been talking a lot to entrepreneurs lately as I've been running my campaign to be appointed to this position, my current position. And I've been told many times by my interlocutors that this current crisis seems to be much more challenging compared to previous crises. And the number one reason is that it is very lengthy. It's a sustainable crisis that takes longer than expected. And so we have to do, back in 1908, and then followed 10 years later also, we had other crises, and we succeeded to overcome them. But whereas now, we see that nothing is changing, and looks like this crisis is not for forever, but for a long time. And we must forget about good times where oil prices were high. Now we need to adjust ourselves to the new realities, whereby the oil price is around $50 per barrel. And as we are going through this intensification process, we need to be patient And unfortunately, moods are a little bit negative with regard to what is happening in Russia, economically speaking. By the way, yesterday during the panel session and early this morning, also Mr. Kudrin and academician Mao spoke to this effect at the earlier panel session where I was present earlier this morning. So the question that was asked was as follows: do we need a growth at all? And academician Mao mentioned that perhaps it does make sense maybe for economy to grow. Maybe we should adjust ourselves to the current realities. But if you ask an entrepreneur, you're running risk of being beaten up because actually. So what was? Did they offer any alternative? No alternative was offered. They said, hey, why don't you look and see what is happening and just relax and see. Why bother? And then another question was asked, well, whether or not it is possible to achieve some economic growth in Russia. And my good colleague of mine, Mr. Petrov, told me, we've been friends for many years now, so we've had a lot of discussions, and he said, no, it is impossible now to grow in Russia, so there's no economy. As a matter of fact, and so he told me, hey, being an economist, from a background, there is no economic growth is possible in Russia. That's what he told me. And I disagree. I did not concur with what he said, because we have some other think tanks that believe that we have some niches that have not been yet exploited adequately. And of course, imports have been, demand for imported goods has been going down, but in light of our import substitution policy, but still, this does offer a lot of opportunities for us to actually grow, right? The third question that also was raised, whether or not it makes sense for the government to actually be involved in all these processes, whether or not to actually incentivize or intensify this demand and support demand. The majority answered no, in a negative question, no, nothing should be done by the government. The government should keep the current interest rate at this current level, which is very high indeed, thus actually restricting demand for money supply, and without trying to strike a balance, or actually keeping this balance. There was this word Alexei Kudrin mentioned, said, so do we have to collect? Yes, we have to collect everything to the center, but this is something that is not correct, I understand. The government, I am convinced that the government must actually and should support businesses, and what Victor said earlier today points to the same direction, and the government has been supporting regional developments, and like in 2008, 2009, the times were better in world economics, whereas now we're going through, like I said, tough patches, and we need to somehow still try and create an enabling environment for investments to come. The program that we're running perhaps is not the most successful one, and we see it at our foundation, Entrepreneurship Development Foundation, because, but still, regardless of all the difficulties, the good news is that businesses work hand in hand with government officials, right? And they develop a decision-making algorithm that does not make it possible for inefficient, ineffective decisions to be made following some, just inflation calls and so forth. Also, we have the Stolypin Club that is running another program aimed at strengthening these tools. We're talking about decapitalization of this foundation. 20 billion, right? Was mentioned 20 billion. Victor has all the numbers up to 600 billion. The journalists are here. Application. How many applications? Well, I'm going to keep this information confidential, says the minister. Yeah, because so how come that the government doesn't capitalize? Exactly. That's what we offer. That's what we come. There's a certain limit on the throughput capacity of this fund. With the number of employees that work for the foundation, they cannot physically process billions of applications. Boris, this is not the case, says Victor. This is about the tool. We need to make sure the tool actually is effective. So we're running it on a pilot mode, right? So we have been very selective so far. And the idea is for investors actually, for applicants to be able to return the funds sometime later when the businesses are running adequately. So, as a matter of fact, soil and land can be used as a collateral, which is, by the way, not the case in Russia. Land is not a matter of, is not a sellable asset, right? And what we refer to as the low infrastructure of cities, and these projects have to be commercial in nature. It's not just the government needs to support businesses. I think that we need to be market oriented, and there's a large arsenal of tools that is being made available to businesses that can actually help them make sure that investments are made and the economy does grow. And by the way, I jotted down here another thought. So there's one spoon of ointment to this to our honey. This recycling tax is something that should have been avoided, I think. All right. Yeah, you were trying to protect nature? No, you were trying to protect domestic manufacturers against imports, and this is something that caused a lot of turmoil amongst manufacturers of tools and machinery. Boris, may I ask you something about your foundation? Talking about 5%, this 5% rate is a pretty preferential rate, right, as opposed to the market, the interest rate. It is subsidized by government. Yeah, but this is only in the part, like 15 to 50%. The rest should be found out there in the market. 5% is the 30. I was told. No, I think it's 50. What is the current rate out in the market? 15. And we offer the foundation grants loans at a preferential rate. The Sberbank is present here. Is it possible to get banks involved as well for them? All right. Okay. Just to 15 equity, 35 loans, debt. The balance being made available by the foundation. By the way, our foundation selects the most effective and promising projects whereby we can guarantee 100% that these funds are going to be returned back to the lenders, in this case our foundation. And 23 billion applications were filed, but the total amount of regional investments is going to grow. Vologda mentioned this in other regions as well. So, but we don't have to speed this up. We need to be very cautious and careful and be selective in our choices. Well, thank you, Yermolai. Just as in conclusion, let me tell you something, but this is something that is very important but not sufficient, right? This is something that was very important yesterday, and this could have supported our trend of this 5 to 7% growth rate of economy and incentivized a new economic model back then when we were ready for that. Whereas now we've been going down. In this, we're faced with a new set of challenges, and we're required to take some more complex and sophisticated and radical measures of a more general nature. And therefore, we believe that we need also to use some fiscal and tax measures. Not that some large-scale tax reform should be conducted, but still it is already pending, and something that we're maturing, right? But at this point in time, we need to come up with some tax incentives, particularly for high-tech industries. We're talking about tax credits and depreciated and accelerated depreciation for Russian-made products in the amount of 150% of their costs. So not total number of fiscal tools that can be made available. I'm not going to discuss them in details. Also, we need also to revisit to review, to adjust our monitoring policy, like fiscal and money policy. Alexei Kudrin, as I understand, so he's representing the policy that we have been carrying out the whole of this years. He said instead of just this kind of wait-and-see policy, we don't believe that this is a good approach, and our monetary policy has to be changed. It has to be much more active and proactive in order to incentivize businesses so that they can move on to use more investments. That's why we need to change our interest rates for loans. All of our businesses know that the level of debt is lowest in the world, is like 47% of GDP, whereas the number in China in the U.S. is about 90%. China has 100%. So we live on our equity, and so the level is very low, which doesn't make sense for economy. Therefore, we need to actually put down our reduce our interest rate, and we need to accumulate funds in order to invest in the future.
Thank you. As for the interest rate, we have been discussing this during the plenary session, and your friend Piotr even has also mentioned this. Just one remark. I loved what Mr. Medvedev said. He gave us an example of Japan, and he said that low rate is not always a guarantee for growth. It's not a sufficient prerequisite for growth, but it is the necessary prerequisite. Any event, a lot of different conditions have to be observed. A new business climate should be created, and then we will have some economic growth. And when the rate is good, when the rate is high, then the growth is not guaranteed. If the rate is reflecting the belief of the stakeholders for the 5 years to come in terms of inflation, in terms of the environment, it reflects a lot of things. And it needs to say that the risk of investing into Russia is high, and we can borrow money internationally. Even before the sanctions, it was not very cheap. And some Chinese banks, which are quite local, they're not afraid of international sanctions because they are only operating in a certain province, and they offered big amounts of money for at the rate of 4 or 5%, and this national risk is 4 or 5%. All the rest is our policies of the central bank. So when the commercial bank will have to reserve 100% of the loan, then the rate which we are paying is the rate of is the price of the double credit, not of our credit. So our loan, not. So this has been developing in all across the globe for 100 years, and this all is not around in our country, and conditions were created for this to get developed in our country. We have a number of people from the regional Foundation for the Development, and I would like to discuss the rate or special investment contracts or the governor's cell phone numbers. What is necessary to bring about that industrial growth? Because we have 4 speakers, we have to stay focused up to the maximum. We sound like CEOs of a central bank. There's a lot of things apart from the interest rates. I've been listening to our German colleagues about the Russian-German brotherhood. It's been very touching, and the investments, and probably the Germans, when they see some yield, they will come in 4 or 5 years. That's been interesting, but in fact, this is only the consequence, but the reason, the cause is the localization and development of industry and other contexts, and investments make us incentivized to get training for welders from Krasnodar Krai. So when we look at this, we see the process of localization. We see lots of different trends, and one trend that we see is that the government told international pharmaceutical companies that starting from this year, a package is not a local product anymore. So when you get pills into a box, then this is not a local product, not a localized one. There will be a lot of allegedly localized products which are not Russian products, because over the past 5 or 6 years we were told that we were localizing. Our machinery companies are in a more difficult situation, but nothing has been localized so far. Just the only localization was the cover and the box. Now it doesn't count anymore. We need to build factories, we need to bring technologies, and only then you can call it localization. I'll give you an example, which was quite interesting. In the pharmaceutical companies, there are 2 persons that we provide, and the third one is the odd one out. There are 2 companies which manufacture the same product. The international company will not be allowed to take part in the state tender. Do you know the result of this? The growth was 30% in domestic companies. The same was shown by other companies. If you feel comfortable in your market, then it's okay. Maybe the rate is not so important. Of course, it's good to listen about some facts about the welders. I think it's always good when international investment comes to the country. It's good when we have some workplaces, but when a company which has grown here has 0.8%, then no rate will help you, because if you get finance from the market, you can live on your own. If the state creates conditions for this, then the priority belongs to domestic companies. It doesn't matter who they belong to. This is an eternal problem. It is good. Well, it can be bad for the consumers. If we protect the market, we're not against competition. No one's against competition. What was the situation like in Japan after the war? They are living without any growth, but after the war, everything was clear. The Japanese companies were not able to compete. But inside, they have a very strict competence, a very tough competence, and they have entered other markets. And I heard that Japan is something we would like to avoid. One important point is that the low rate is good, but we need a market and the market share. In the first row, we have several participants of the sessions. Let me ask Andrei Sokolov from Sberbank. The FRP tool is in high demand. There is a possibility of external financing. How do you view this mechanism? project methods of work. So what's the perspective of Sberbank in terms of this? Thank you for your question. I would like to support Dmitry. When we are issuing the loan, we are always looking at the payback term, at the marketing, and at the efficiency of manufacturing. But there are always laws of economy and economics, and everything is important. It's not that something is more important. I'm a member of the expert council at Sberbank, and I think this is one of the most efficient institutions of development. And we have 120 customers approved. Our customers number 54, so we are offering this tool to our customers. This tool, when the state gives out some money itself, there is no bank loan. It deals with own funds, and there is another tool which can be a driver, Corporation of Small and Medium Businesses, program 6.5. There will be a decrease to 10.6%, and the entry fee was 15 million. Now it will be 10 million. It is a good news that we have approved certain loans, and it can be a big driver, an important driver. If we continue with the topic of supporting the industry, there is a big number of applications, and we take all the different branches which can get subsidized. We're taking the strongest and the most technologically developed players, and those who can compete. This idea of competition, the ability of exporting some goods, it can bring us a lot of efficiency. Can I ask you just one question? What types of projects are most competitive, most export-oriented? Does it have something to do with the entrepreneurs? The key drivers are agriculture, chemical industry, or foodstuffs industry. In any industry, there are successful projects. There are projects for business centers with great efficiency, and they're present in every industry. We have to look for those points of growth, and the art of bankers is to interact with the businesses and find solutions, find the models. I would like to say a few words about the state support. The state support is something that we need, because it is another lever to develop business. And if we take agriculture, our market was closed, but we had a good subsidizing program, and a few percent had to be paid. And the growth of agriculture is quite big. I'm sorry. We are experiencing growth, and if there is a growth in the market, then the financial institutions are growing. We can have subsidizing of rates, subsidizing of capital costs in agriculture, 20%. And on the other hand, I don't know how long ago this all this started, but when the state stopped paying a lot of attention to harvests, the harvests started to grow. If we talk about agriculture, this is a very specific market. It is subsidized in every country. It's the least markety market. When we're fighting the poultry which comes from Brazil. We have to subsidize our manufacturers. So what has been introduced in terms of subsidies was very timely and very appropriate. Let me ask Sergei Kazakov. You're the director of the industrial fund of the Chelyabinsk region. Do you adhere to the same principles, or are you part of the same process? So which is your alignment with the ministerial fund? We are an independent structure. The Chelyabinsk region is an industrial region. Our governor is used to be an industrialist, and he knows the problems of the industry firsthand. And as a result of this, a regional program was launched, and we were the first ones to sign an agreement with the federal fund, and we can finance our projects 30 to 70, and 30% come from the regional funds, 70% comes from the federal fund. We will have a representative of the federal side. We are in continuous cooperation. They're all young people, and we are forgetting one important thing. The foundation is comprised of two parts, and it is associated with financing. And from our experience in the regions, we know that the consulting center works on the 50-50 basis. It is a center which allows us to make out all the vicissitudes of the trade and commerce. This Ministry of Trade and Industry is one agency which offers us great tools which are important for our industrialists. They help us find our proper way. And there's a big number of contracts, and the regional fund is quite interesting. So we have 350 million rubles in our fund, and from our experience, we know that the rate is quite interesting for anyone. It deals with special investment contracts, mean benefits, mean special relationships with authorities. But first of all, it's stability, which guarantees some development. And the peculiarities of regional work is that we have to work with small and medium businesses. As co-financers, we can give 100 million rubles. So the project can cost up to 200 rubles. This deals with industrial projects. It's a very difficult segment. I envied Mr. Ritter. If there are subsidies, it's good. If there are no subsidies, then it's even better. But we have to learn how to work in those contexts. We have to work with small and medium businesses, and it yields some payback. We've started to gather different bids, and we co-finance projects with the regions and with the federal center. So what was the development trend in your region? We listened to our colleague. He shared with us his example of the city of Oriol and Oriol region. We don't have. He doesn't have monsters. He doesn't have large corporations. We have 16 company cities. We have a very diverse structure. Whenever we have a new corporation like Chelyabinsk electrometallurgical factory, we have a negative dynamics. The small business started to develop. and this is a big, success of our fund. I would like to ask the president of the Yugra Bank, Alexei Nefedov, Nikolai Dunaev, president of the Senate of Russia organization. I would ask how about your vision of the situation for small and medium business, what your organization thinks is important to achieve the goals of increasing the GDP and increasing the share of the GDP and making the business feel comfortable and develop confidently. I'm sorry that I'm sitting. In fact, the situation with the small and medium business is a big concern, not only for the government but also for us, because the projects which had been subsidized before, they have one problem: is its demand for their products, for their services, and it exerts a big influence on the situation in the context of stagnation and crisis. And this is something that we have to live with, and we have been talking a lot about opportunities of using cheap resources and the availability of those resources, but generally speaking, the driver for the development of these companies is an increase in domestic demand, and these small and medium companies enjoy a broadened program of support. You cannot call a loan of up to 50 million rubles. You wouldn't call this company a small one, so it's a medium company. And another kind of support is the participation of a small or medium company in state procurement projects. It will increase the speed of decision making, and it will reduce the risks for the resources, because when this company contacts major governmental customers, then there will be no problems in terms of supplies, and we hope that joint effort from the government and will make it possible for us to invest into projects like this. Industrial projects are more transparent, more clear. We can resolve some of the issues via leasing, but I think that there are enough drivers for this, and the government is really concerned with this support. Thanks, Nikolai. Thank you. May I just remain standing? Sochi has one minus. There is a C here, and I was doubting when I walked out of the C today to be on time for the session. I was doubting if it would be interesting or not. If next year we hold the forum in February, it will be even better, even to work. I'm happy that there is so much attention for this session. I was eagerly listening to everyone, and I would like to give a feedback to every speaker. You're quite right, Dmitry. And all the battles about credits take roots in the time when no one had any problems with sales, and they used their turnover capital for supplies. The market is quite specific.
So I look at the manufacturing of generic pharmaceuticals, but also there's some original pharmaceuticals that are produced, and this market is going to develop, I understand, because there's going to be always demand for foodstuffs and for pharmaceuticals, right? Because people get sick and people need to eat. Whereas machine building industry is sometimes, as a matter of fact, can be affected by crises, and there's not demand for machines is not as constant as for other goods, and therefore Victor ran our last meeting at the council, and we try to make our contribution, because you cannot just, be number one everywhere. I like the German approach, 180 billion euro worth of exports, right, in machine building. This is just, whereas Russia has $7.2 billion worth of exports, and we're proud of this. Whereas, I understand, according to Baden-Württemberg Chamber of Commerce data, I just had a chat with them, only 30,000 enterprises only produce, only 30,000 operators with a total number of like 30 employees per enterprise that produce that much export goods. So there's a lot for us to learn from our German colleagues as part of this wielding tandem, right? So that we can actually try and attract such companies around our industrial business clusters, thanks to one of the tools that we mentioned here, which is SPIC. Number two, number three, which needs to be done for social professional associations and organizations, for them to assume some responsibility and bear, if not the brunt, but at least some part of the burden of financial abilities, and people who work there for decades, Rakulas in Bratsk or shorter as in Troitsk. Can we launch the register? Doesn't matter whether this is Russian or non-Russian companies, and our public officials, as a matter of fact, they work hard at the Ministry of Trade and Industry. We need to give a lot of credit to be given to them, I understand. But speaking about access, like, for example, in order for a manufacturer to get access, to get through this certification process, they need to apply to the commerce trade first, chamber, and then they can go to your ministry. And very slowly but surely we're moving into the right direction. Boris left, and unfortunately he didn't. Wasn't the one to listen to my comments with regard to the use of soil. Land of industrial use has not been changing for the last couple of years, and then I quit this initiative and I started working with what actually generates profit instead of just making losses. And speaking about the choice of locations for small and medium-sized businesses is something that we should rely on regions. Without this, like Lipetsk, for example, they have this great typer plant where 500 companies can be housed in. Just the governor would say, "Hey, I'm with you, I join you," and then by just giving out these premises at no cost at all, right? And then the return would have been very high, and the whole world has used the same model, and sometimes we fall behind some best practices. One of the ideas that has always been mentioned at such applied discussion panels was that maybe there's a lack of mechanism in terms of peer exchange of opinion and expertise, right? You're right, and maybe social organizations could play a role here, indeed, rather than looking up to federal ministers. Friends, we running late here, and actually we started off later. But anyway, so let me take the opportunity to thank you all for having been active, for being creative, and having generated so much, so many ideas. And instead, just I wish you all the best, not only just to work, but also to have some fun here in Sochi. Thank you.